Our story begins in a small town nestled among the mountains in South Korea. In a high school classroom, the teacher explains to the students how to use the formulas. Our protagonist, Yoona-jun, glances at another student who seems to be dozing off. That student is Sean Na. She notices he recently changed his hairstyle and concludes that's why the entire school is in a frenzy this morning. Still observing Sean, she notices his well-cared-for skin and perfectly proportioned facial features, as if he belonged to royalty. It's almost as if he doesn't fit in a town as small as theirs. But apart from his appearance, his nonchalant and benign behavior fits perfectly with the town. And even transferring schools at such a weird time, he, a true charming prince, turned everyone at school into his allies in no time. Yoona concludes mentally. The teacher, who also notices Sean's drowsiness, calls his attention, saying that now that he's done with his nap, he should come solve the next problem for everyone to see. Surprised, Sean stands up, looks at his notebook, and complains about the difficulty of the math equation. The teacher replies that it shouldn't be hard for him, since theoretically, in his previous school, he must have done similar problems. Embarrassed, Sean says he never solved a problem like that, and maybe because he's still a bit sleepy, it feels harder than usual. The classmates begin to laugh, as if they've just heard a joke. The teacher then looks at the rest of the class and calls on Yoona-jun to solve the problem Sean couldn't. Serious and nearly expressionless, our protagonist gets up and walks to the board. Without difficulty, she solves the equation quickly, and is praised by the teacher, who reminds everyone that Yoona is the top 1 student in class. Turning to return to her seat, Yoona mentally corrects the teacher, telling us that actually, she's the best student in the school. But she doesn't think that's much of an achievement, after all. The school is so small, it's not hard to be the best student there. When Yoona gets back to her seat, the teacher looks at Sean and asks if he's not ashamed of being beaten by a girl. Sean is stunned by what he just heard. Still perplexed, Sean starts to answer the teacher, trying to defend Yoona. But he's interrupted by another student who kicks his chair hard, making a loud noise and drawing everyone's attention. The student yawns, as if nothing happened. He looks at the teacher, saying he believes the class is over. The teacher, irritated, points at the student, and we then find out his name is Jin Kwon. The teacher tells Jin that he's the one who decides when class is over. With a serious expression, Jin looks at the teacher and explains that he really needs to go to the bathroom, and that he's already even unbuckled his belt. Jin, without waiting for the teacher's response, gets up and starts walking toward the door. And the teacher, annoyed, ends up dismissing the class. The other students talk about Jin, saying he's nuts and a wannabe gangster. Yoona seems indifferent to all the commotion. Classes end and everyone seems pretty excited about the end of the day. A student approaches Yoona, calling her. We see that this student is Sean. He seems a bit awkward. Sean apologizes for indirectly making Yoona solve the equation in his place. She looks at Sean and asks him to move. Sean, surprised by her words, stays there to see if she's going to say anything else. Yoona stands up, saying she needs to go to the bathroom and that they're in her way. Sean awkwardly apologizes and steps aside. The other girls in the class look as Yoona walks away and comment that her attitude is quite problematic. They advise Sean not to waste his time talking to Yoona, since she's a despicable girl. While walking, Yoona looks at her worn-out shoes. She sighs and thinks about how all her clothes are worn and have been used over and over again. Most of the students at the school aren't in much better situations than hers. The only person who really stands out, Sean Na, the prince of the school, always in perfectly kept clothes and expensive watches. I hate people like him, Yoona thinks. The scene cuts to the mountains. Our protagonist knows that normally, in this small town in the middle of the mountains, it gets dark quite early. Even so, there she is, walking up the mountain after school. Unfortunately, her house is a terrible place to study. There's no desk, and it's extremely messy and small. Our protagonist tells us she could stay at school to study, but some girls don't like her very much and find any excuse to bother her. Yoona had a dilemma. She needed to study and focus, but had nowhere to go. Until a few days ago when she was walking aimlessly after being beaten by her drunk mother, and she found this small shed in the middle of the mountains. A perfect place, practically a sanctuary for studying. She noticed that the furniture inside the shed wasn't as old as the exterior. So she concluded someone must have lived there recently. But that didn't matter. She had found the perfect spot, empty, abandoned, and peaceful. Everything she needed. When she grabs her key to unlock the padlock, she notices it's already unlocked. Yuna enters the cabin, mentally telling us that actually there's one more person who knows about this place. Jin Kwon, the person with the worst reputation not only at school but in the entire town. You never came back after going to the bathroom? Have you been sleeping here all this time? Yuna asks. He says yes, and that he plans to sleep even more. Indifferent, Yuna tells him to feel free. Jin climbs down from the small mezzanine he was on. While cracking his shoulders, he asks Yuna if she wants some instant noodles. As if it were a normal routine, Jin starts preparing the noodles without even waiting for Yuna's answer. He just asks whether she wants egg or not. Saying yes, she asks him not to mix it the way he did last time. Jin cooks while Yuna studies. As if it were routine, the two have been sharing that shed for some time. Our protagonist tells us she's known Jin Kwon for a while. Rumors say he lost his parents when he was a child and bounced from relative to relative until ending up in this town. Apparently, his family has some connection to the mafia, which is why his parents died. There are rumors he's hit teachers and he frequently gets into fights. Despite going to the same school for at least a year, Yuna had never even spoken to him. She believed things would stay that way until graduation, but everything changed unexpectedly. A week ago, after finding the shed, Yuna was excitedly studying, until she heard a strange noise from inside the shed. Looking in the direction of the noise, Yuna saw Jin's piercing eyes, and discovered she wasn't the only one using the abandoned shed. Scared, thinking she had just invaded Jin's house, and knowing his reputation, she quickly started gathering her things and apologizing for coming in. Yuna's thoughts were racing after running into him. Jin Kwon, the most problematic boy in town. But instead of getting mad, Jin walked past her and told her that place wasn't his house. Jin explained that he'd been using the shed for a month already and had never seen anyone there besides her. In disbelief, Yuna asks again if really no one lives there, and Jin confirms that no one does. So what do you do here? Having a special moment alone? Jin replies after thinking for a bit. Noticing Yuna's surprised expression, Jin says, napping and stuff. Get your mind out of the gutter. Embarrassed, Yuna says she wasn't thinking anything like that. But before she can say anything else, Jin says he knows she uses the shed to study. Climbing back up to the mezzanine, he goes back to sleep, clearly unbothered by Yuna's presence. Still trying to process what just happened, Yuna can't believe he just went to sleep. She wonders if she should leave. Yuna knows the smartest choice is to leave. After all, Jin's reputation is terrible, and his actions are clearly unpredictable. But this place is perfect for studying, and she knows the chances of finding somewhere like this again are basically zero. Convincing herself that the place doesn't belong to Jin, even if he found it a little before she did, that doesn't give him the right to claim it's his. Yuna finds it strange that Jin has been sleeping there all this time while she studied and she never noticed. So she climbs up to check. She observes Jin to see if he's really sleeping. Still awake, Jin opens his eyes and tells Yuna that if she has something to say, she should just spit it out. Surprised, Yuna quickly stands up, hitting her head and shoulder on the low ceiling. The impact causes her to lose balance and start to fall. Jin, noticing she's about to fall, grabs her by the wrist, pulling her toward him, making her fall on top of him. With her head on his chest, Jin warns her to be careful, because the railing here isn't that high. Still surprised, Yuna feels Jin's hand on her waist. Realizing the position she's in, she becomes extremely embarrassed and redder than a chili pepper. She quickly pulls away from Jin, telling him to get away from her. He jokingly acts offended, saying that's how she treats someone who just helped her. Trying to change the subject, Yuna asks how he knew she studied there. He replies that it's because he saw her 2 days ago. While he was sleeping in the mezzanine, he woke up and saw someone studying. And when he looked closer at the back and hair, he knew it was her. Jin explains that it's because normally in class he sits 2 desks behind Yuna. Yuna finds it strange that he could recognize her just by looking at her back. So she looks at him suspiciously. Not noticing Yuna's suspicious look, Jin slaps one of his hands on the mattress and says that if she had been looking for the bed, he would have kicked her out. But since it was obvious she was only there to use the table and study, Jin thought he wouldn't mind sharing the space. Sharing the space? Yuna says aloud, surprised. Responding to Yuna's comment, Jin says that since they both need a quiet place to be, but their goals are different, which is perfect because that way they won't disturb each other, then coexisting in this space should be fine. Yuna knows Jin has a good point, but even so, she asks him, since he only comes there to sleep, why doesn't he just sleep at his house? He replies with the same tone, why don't you study at your house? The question makes her recall the situation she lives in. With that, she realizes that just like her, he must also have his reasons for needing that place. Changing the subject, Yuna asks if he's sure no one lives there. And what if someone else comes in besides them? Jin reassures her, saying he'll bring a padlock and can leave a key with her. Still confused, Yuna says that clearly he'd be more comfortable using that place alone. So why? But before she can finish the question, Jin replies that, like he said before, he doesn't mind coexisting. But she's still visibly awkward. Staring at her, Jin says, so are you gonna want a key or not? She answers yes, embarrassed. He then kicks her downstairs so she can go back to studying and stop bothering him. Yuna stays there for a few minutes, motionless, thinking about what just happened. She approaches her chair, wondering if it's really okay to share that space with him. But, you don't even know me? Yuna shouts from downstairs. Yuna-jun, the top student in school. He replies, it's not just because I don't have good grades that I can't memorize the names of the people I study with. She finally convinces herself, especially since she knows there's no better place to study than there. And so our protagonist tells us how her coexistence with Jin began. The small warehouse was divided into 2 territories, with Jin staying in the mezzanine where he sleeps and Yuna on the first floor, studying. Despite sharing the same space at school, they pretend to be strangers. After all, they don't talk much during the time they spend together. But ever since Jin started bringing instant noodles home a month ago, they started eating together, talking and interacting a bit more with each other. Glancing at Jin, and now that she interacts more with him, Yuna realizes he's a normal person. Very different from what the rumors said. The two talk quite casually when they're together. Yuna asks how many eggs he put in the soup and whether he broke any of them. He replies that out of the 5 eggs, 2 aren't broken. She then starts complaining that she hates it when the soup gets all murky because of the eggs. Hearing the complaint, Jin calls her out, seriously explaining that he already has to cook the noodles in a way that pleases both of their tastes, so the least she can do is let the murky soup slide. Handing her the chopsticks, they start eating while Jin grumbles about how picky Yuna is with food. They begin to eat and Jin accidentally, or maybe not, spills soup on Yuna's blouse. Annoyed, Yuna complains at him for spilling soup on her. But Jin just shrugs, saying she can just wash it and wear a different blouse tomorrow. Except Yuna had planned to wear that same blouse tomorrow too. She glares at Jin with sharp eyes while wishing her fists were bigger so she could give him a few whacks for that. Noticing her stare, Jin stops eating. Okay, take off that blouse. I'll wash it for you, he says, pointing at her shirt. Huh? Take it off? Wash it with what? What do you mean? Yuna asks, confused. Jin insists, telling her to take the blouse off. What? You pervert! Yuna screams, quickly backing away from Jin and accidentally hitting her head against the wall. Watching the scene, Jin says she likes hitting her head for someone so smart. Shut up, Yuna replies angrily while massaging the bump on her head. Out of nowhere, Jin takes off his t-shirt. Yes, dear readers, this manhwa is very promising. Embarrassed and completely lost, Yuna stares at him confused. Take your shirt off and wear this one, he says. The stain on yours should come out easily with a bit of dish soap, he adds, handing her his shirt. Do you want me to wash your blouse or not? Jin asks impatiently. Yuna feels like this is unnecessary, but before answering Jin, she stops and thinks for a second. Washing clothes at home is always a hassle, and the water is really cold, making her hands ache from the cold. Like a logical robot, she starts calculating how convenient it would be to have Jin wash her blouse. She takes the shirt from his hand and asks him to wait a minute outside. But it's not like there's much to... Before Jin can finish the sentence, Yuna shouts for him to get out. Puffing slightly in irritation, Yuna stares at the door for a few seconds before changing clothes. After a few minutes, she calls Jin back in. He turns to enter but pauses for a few seconds, looking at Yuna. She extends the blouse toward him, but he starts walking in without taking it, and she, confused, asks if he's changed his mind and isn't going to wash it anymore. Jin takes the blouse from Yuna's hand. He walks over to the sink and starts washing it without saying anything else. Yuna watches him while finishing her noodles. She finds it funny, seeing such a muscular guy washing a dirty blouse at the sink. In fact, she realizes she had never noticed before how fit and strong Jin is. And that, unlike the rumors, he doesn't have any gang tattoos. Lost in thought about how different Jin is from what everyone says, Yuna pulls Jin's shirt closer to her face, breathing in the nice scent clinging to it. At that moment, she hears Jin asking what the hell she's doing. She freezes for a second upon hearing that, realizing what she was doing. Trying to cover it up, she starts fanning herself with the shirt, saying the instant noodles were way too spicy and making her feel hot. She asks him for a glass of water, embarrassed and trying to distract him from what just happened. The scene cuts to a bit later that same day. Yuna stretches after finishing her studies. Jin is sleeping peacefully in the mezzanine. She begins packing her things when she hears Jin yawning as he wakes up. He comes down the mezzanine stairs, almost like he had an alarm clock that tells him when she's done studying, and asks if she's heading home. Yuna compares Jin to a cat, because just like one, he always seems to know when the vibe in the room changes. She remembers that in the beginning, she always wondered whether she should wake him up or not to say she was going home after studying. But she never had to, because every time she finished, he'd come say goodbye to her on his own. But that night, besides saying goodnight like usual, he seemed worried about her going home later than usual. Yuna, noticing his concern, takes the chance to tease Jin a little. "Don't tell me you're actually worried about me? What are you gonna do, walk me home?" Jin looks at Yuna with a serious, almost frozen expression. Sensing his coldness, or maybe his total lack of humor, Yuna pulls a flashlight from her bag. She uses it to light her way home. Jin asks her not to use that flashlight anymore. Yuna doesn't understand why he's asking that. He explains that people could find out they're using that place. A flashlight's light can easily be seen at night. While turning the flashlight on and off, she questions how she's supposed to get home without it, since it's really dark at night. Without answering, Jin goes to the cabinet and starts looking for something. He finds a big piece of wood, grabs it in his hand, and walks toward Yuna. Yuna starts taking steps back in fear, mentally scolding herself for letting her guard down around Jin. He then stretches the piece of wood toward her and asks her to grab one end. "I can see just fine at night," says Jin, as if that were all the explanation Yuna needed. The scene skips to Jin and Yuna going down the mountain as he guides her using the piece of wood. Our protagonist tells us that from that day on, every night, Jin would walk her home. He cared about her. He even made a softer spot on the wood so she could hold it without hurting her hand. It was amazing how the more time she spent with him, the more she got to know him, and the more she was sure that all the rumors about him were false. During the walk, Jin would always point out things she needed to be careful about, like a hole in the ground, etc. Yuna lets her intrusive thoughts take over and tells Jin he reminds her a lot of a cat. Even the fact that he can see so well in the dark, since cat pupils normally dilate and contract efficiently so they can see well. She ends up telling Jin that she doesn't know what she'd do if he stopped going to the warehouse, Ishaho home, since he walks her back every night. "You'd have to leave before sunset," Jin replies, completely indifferent. But Yuna grows pensive. She knows she can't go back home before the sun goes down. After that, they walk the rest of the way in silence, until they reach the town, where, in a very impersonal way, they say goodbye and go their separate ways. Yuna pauses for a moment. She turns to look at Jin, thinking about thanking him for the company. She sees him walking away. She hesitates and ends up saying nothing. She walks to her house and stops for a few seconds in front of the door, as if building the courage to go in. When she reaches her apartment door, she sees bottles and bags of alcohol outside. Sighing, she assumes her mother has been drinking again. She enters the apartment, thinking that with that much alcohol, her mother must already be asleep. We see the image of a black-haired woman, very thin and with a lost look in her eyes. Yuna is startled. "Mom? You weren't sleeping?" The woman only responds with a mumble. She grabs a basin that was near the kitchen and walks toward Yuna, throwing the basin full of water on her, soaking Yuna completely, who is left frozen by the situation. Before her daughter can say anything, the woman lashes out, slapping her multiple times. Yuna only shields her face while thinking, I should have stayed out a little longer," as if she were wrong for coming home too early. The scene cuts to the next day at school, during PE class. The teacher is organizing the teams for a dodgeball game. Our protagonist is participating, but she clearly doesn't feel well. Her face is flushed, and she's slightly out of breath. Nearby, Jin walks while seemingly watching Yuna from the corner of his eye. One of Yuna's classmates, who doesn't like her, bumps into her. She apologizes in an obviously fake tone, making it clear the bump was intentional. Our protagonist, to my surprise, flips her off. The classmate looks confused by Yuna's gesture and complains, prompting Yuna to say, "Oh, so you can see, huh?" The teacher notices the small commotion and tells both of them to stop because the game is about to start. In my opinion, that's exactly the kind of protagonist I like. No more staying quiet and taking crap from others. Our protagonist tells us that classmate's name is Hisu, and that normally dealing with her nonsense is a piece of cake. But today, she's not feeling too well. Maybe it's because she had to spend the entire night outside her apartment in wet clothes, and that's why she must have caught a cold. Now I understand why she needs a quiet place to study. Her mother is horrible. The game starts, and Yuna just hopes to lose quickly so she can leave and get some rest. But it seems like Hisu and her friends have other plans. One of Hyesu's lackeys grabs the ball quickly before Yuna can be hit. She keeps doing it repeatedly. Not just her, but Hisu and the other lackey too. Yuna quickly realizes they're doing it on purpose, as a way to exclude her from the game while still forcing her to stay there. And they seem pretty committed to it. Sean, who's on the other team, overhears Hisu telling the others about their little plan against Yuna. Meanwhile, Yuna is clearly getting worse, barely able to stay on her feet. Feeling sick, she thinks about going to the teacher to ask to leave, but before she can do that, Sean, who has the ball, throws it toward Yuna, hitting her squarely, making her collapse unconscious on the ground. Sean becomes very worried and shocked, since he's the one who threw the ball. The game is stopped, and Sean and another friend run toward Yuna. He shakes her, trying to wake her up, but she doesn't respond. They decide to quickly take her to the infirmary. Jin, who is still near the court, watches everything that happened from a distance. Yuna wakes up in the school infirmary, realizing she must have passed out from exhaustion, and that she probably caught a cold from spending the night sleeping outside while soaking wet. She notices that although she's close to the window, there's a very convenient shadow over her face. Looking at the window, she sees someone taped papers up to block the sunlight from hitting her directly. The school nurse walks in, complaining about how hot it is in there. She sees a heater near Yuna and asks who the hell brought a heater to school in the middle of summer. The nurse also notices the papers on the window and starts tearing them down. She places her hand on Yuna's forehead, asking how she's feeling, complaining that it's impossible to tell if she's hot because of the fever or because of the heater. The nurse scolds Yuna, saying that if she wasn't feeling well, she should have told the teacher so she wouldn't have to participate in PE. Yuna apologizes to the nurse, saying she thought she could handle it. Since class time is nearly over, the nurse tells Yuna she should probably go home early today to rest. Without waiting for a response from Yuna, she begins leaving the infirmary, saying she has a meeting to attend. Yuna sits up in bed, her head throbbing, thinking that going home is the worst option for her. She hears the nurse talking to someone who apparently came to check on Yuna. When thinking of someone who would care enough to check on her, Jin's image comes to Yuna's mind. But to her surprise, it's Sean who appears. Sean Na, what is he doing here? As if he heard Yuna's thoughts, Sean says he came to check on her. He had come earlier between classes, but she was still asleep. He explains that he thought maybe she needed to be taken to the hospital, because he'd never seen someone faint like that before. Especially because of him, since she passed out right after he hit her with the ball. Yuna doesn't understand what he's saying, because she fainted due to being sick. Noticing how upset Sean seems and analyzing the situation, she realizes it'd be easy to assume it was his fault. She decides to tease him a bit, asking why he even bothered coming to check on her if he so clearly hit her with a lot of force. Sean quickly explains that she misunderstood everything. He didn't mean to hurt her. He noticed that morning when she arrived at school that she didn't look well. So he assumed that during dodgeball, she wanted to get hit on purpose so she could leave the court. And that's why he threw the ball at her. Sean apologizes for making her faint, explaining that he was just trying to help her. Sean's words make Yuna think about last night, when she struggled to even say a simple thank you to Jin. How can people be so sincere while she has such a hard time saying something as simple as thank you? She believes it must be easy for Sean because he probably lives in a world full of affection and compassion without a single parasite to bother him. Yuna tells Sean that it's okay, that it wasn't anything serious. Sean feels relieved hearing that. Yuna gets up from the bed, a bit unsteady since even though she's feeling better, she's still sick. She tells Sean that the heater and the papers on the window were unnecessary. Still, she's grateful he did that for her. Sean looks a bit stunned, surprised that Yuna actually thanked him. An awkward silence follows. I'm starting to think it wasn't even him who put those things there. And the sly bastard didn't deny it, just stayed quiet. Yuna thinks it was strangely easy to say thank you to someone. She should try it more often. Still a little dizzy, she accidentally bumps into Sean. Sean catches her to keep her from falling. Worried and almost whispering in her ear, he asks if she's okay. You probably shouldn't be moving around so fast, Yuna. You still don't seem 100%, he says, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. The warmth and closeness of Yuna's body make him blush. Back off, Sean. Stay away from our girl. This is Team Jin. At that moment, someone enters the infirmary. Jin. He appears and comes across the scene between Yuna and Sean. He observes the situation silently for a few seconds. Yuna, surprised by Jin's sudden appearance and realizing he might take it the wrong way, quickly steps away from Sean. Sean asks if Jin is sick too. Without responding, Jin just walks toward the two of them. Sean instinctively moves in front of Yuna, as if trying to protect her. Does he think Jin would do something to me? Yuna wonders, seeing Sean's reaction. And why did Jin come to the infirmary? I doubt he's worried about me. But what if he suddenly starts acting super friendly out of nowhere? Yuna thinks as Jin walks past them in silence. He goes to where the medications are kept and grabs one of the bottles. He puts it in his pocket and leaves as if he were the only one in the room. Sean seems relieved, while Yuna looks a bit annoyed at Jin acting all tough, when just yesterday he was washing her shirt. Sean confesses that he feels uncomfortable around Jin. But our protagonist isn't paying attention to what Sean says. She's too worried thinking about why Jin took those medications. Sean calls her, offering to walk her home. Coldly, Yuna says she's fine and doesn't need him to walk her. With that, she begins to leave the infirmary. Sean just watches her walk away, not understanding why she's being so cold. But in truth, the subject of home is a very sensitive one for our protagonist. She doesn't want anyone to find out what kind of place she lives in. Leaving school, Yuna goes straight to the small warehouse in the mountains. When she sees the lock is secured, she looks a little disappointed. She goes to her desk and lays out her materials to start studying. Even though she's completely exhausted, she knows exams are coming soon and she needs to study. Maybe it's just stubbornness on Yuna's part, but she wants to be the valedictorian when she graduates from high school. She knows being valedictorian is a title and a recognition she can proudly say she earned through her own effort. Maybe it's the fatigue or maybe the fever is coming back, but she can't stop thinking about the comfy bed just behind her. Maybe a little break would help her feel better. Yuna shakes her head, scolding herself for the thought. She knows she needs to study. But before she even realizes it, worn down by exhaustion, she lies down on the mezzanine bed. After all, being well-rested is important to study effectively. Jin will probably be mad if he finds out she invaded his territory. But she fainted today at school. Maybe he'd forgive her for that? And why did he show up at the infirmary? It was embarrassing that he saw that scene. What must he have thought when he saw it? Yuna's thoughts are racing, but she starts to feel sleepy. Her eyes slowly begin to close as she wonders what Jin will do when he finds her there. Will he wake her up? And what if he doesn't come? How will she get home without her flashlight? Yuna ends up falling asleep for a while, until she senses something approaching her. She startles at the sight of a man above her, and instinctively, she starts punching him, trying to defend herself. Telling her to wait, Jin grabs her hands to make her stop. That's when she finally realizes the person above her is actually Jin. But the fact that he's on top of her and so close makes her embarrassed. Flustered and still a little scared, she pushes Jin away, making him hit his head on the low ceiling. Massaging the bump on his head, Jin asks what the hell she was doing. Yuna defends herself, saying he was trying to squash her. Jin explains he didn't know it was her. He thought someone had broken into the warehouse. Annoyed, Yuna says, who else would be there besides her? And that clearly, seeing the unlocked padlock, he should have known. Jin sighs, a bit irritated. Forget that. What are you doing here? Do you have any idea what time it is? It's already past 2 in the morning. Yuna is shocked by what Jin says. Concerned, Jin continues speaking. What were you thinking staying here so late? You should have at least locked the door. You just fell asleep without worrying about anything. Defensive, Yuna fires back that there's no way for her to lock the door since the padlock is on the outside. Realizing she's right, Jin then says she should have gone home to sleep. And you? Why don't you go home to sleep? What are you doing here at this hour? It's past 2 in the morning. Yuna snaps back. Ignoring her comment, Jin reminds her that the mezzanine isn't her territory. That really ticks Yuna off, and she starts yelling at him. Who the hell cares who it belongs to or not? We should use the space based on our needs. My head is killing me, my whole body hurts. I just came up to nap for a bit, but because I was sick, I overslept. Is that such a damn crime? All the yelling makes Yuna's headache return. Seeing that, Jin agrees to let her use the bed whenever she needs it. He says it's already late and tells her to get up so he can walk her to town. Annoyed, Yuna refuses Jin's help, saying he should stop acting like he cares about her. Without thinking, Jin asks how he could just ignore her after she fainted from a ball simply touching her. Jin scratches his head and looks away, embarrassed by what he just said. Yuna is surprised to realize that Jin does care about her. How's your fever? Jin asks. He asks if she took any medicine to help, and she says she just slept a lot and now feels a bit better. That even though she's a little warm, it's just a cold combined with not sleeping well last night. Jin stands up and tells her to wait a second. He goes down the stairs with ease, despite it being dark. Yuna scolds him about how dangerous it is to go down the stairs without the light on. Jin turns the light on, saying that she's the one who's sick, so she shouldn't be worrying about him. Yuna fires back, saying she's not worried. She just doesn't want to have to explain to the police how she found his corpse. Jin grabs the medicine he took from the infirmary earlier and a glass of water. He climbs back up to the mezzanine, warning Yuna not to go down because she's still dizzy. He then hands her the medicine and the water. She accepts and asks if he's sick too, since he took those meds from the infirmary. Sarcastically, Jin replies that yes, he's got menstrual cramps. That's supposed to be a joke? Yuna asks, incredulous. Shut up and take the medicine, Jin mutters, embarrassed. Out of nowhere, Yuna bursts into laughter. If I had at least one friend, it'd be hilarious to tell them that Jin Kwon gets menstrual cramps, Yuna says while still laughing. She finally calms down and takes the medicine. Jin comments that her parents must be super worried about her, since it's so late and she still hasn't gone home. Changing the subject, Yuna says she's going to spend the night there anyway. Surprised, Jin tells Yuna to get down, since the bed is his. She comments that he really should stop sleeping so much. You really in any position to say that, Yuna? Weren't you the one who slept here all day? Today was an exception, Jin. I'm talking about under normal circumstances. But Jin ignores her and tells her to hurry up and go home. He'll walk her. Stubborn, Yuna insists on spending the night there. Jin looks at her, asking if she's really going to stay there. And what if someone comes? But Yuna knows that no one besides him has come there for months, and she stands firm in her decision, saying that if he's so worried about her, he should spend the night there too. Jin is impressed by Yuna's words. Noticing this, she explains that she's not inviting him to sleep with her. She just thought they had an unspoken deal about the reasons why they share the house. Yes, and for you, this is a place where you can study, says Jin. Yuna, venting, says that it's the only place where she can get a bit of rest. She's surprised at herself for saying that to someone. But maybe because it's him, someone she spent so much time with, maybe it's okay to say it. I can't go home, Yuna says, a bit embarrassed. Jin watches her, and that makes her think maybe he's there at that hour for similar reasons to hers. Without saying anything, Jin sighs, gets up, and starts going down the stairs. He almost trips when he hears Yuna thanking him. Seeing that, she tells him to be careful going down the stairs or he might trip and break his neck. Shut up and go to sleep, says Jin, while sitting and leaning over the table to sleep. Yuna, happy, lies down and calls out to Jin, asking him to turn off the light. He turns it off while grumbling, which makes Yuna chuckle softly. Even though the place isn't exactly familiar, it makes her feel good and safe. And part of that is because Jin is there too. Yuna wonders when being close to Jin started making her feel safe instead of threatened. She had fallen asleep so quickly earlier that she didn't even notice how much the bed smelled like Jin. A gentle and refreshing scent that makes her feel good, knowing it's his. He's very different from the rumors and much kinder than he appears. Thinking about that, Yuna pesters Jin a little more about the menstrual cramps before falling asleep. The next morning, Yuna wakes up feeling refreshed. She can't even remember the last time she slept so comfortably and peacefully. Her fever is gone. Her body doesn't hurt anymore. What a great way to start the day. She smells the delicious scent of food in the air. Yuna looks down from the mezzanine and sees a still sleepy Jin cooking ramen. I've been meaning to ask you this for a while, but is your family the owner of an instant noodle factory? Jin gives Yuna a disapproving look and completely ignores her question, continuing to cook. Yuna walks to the edge of the mezzanine and starts going down the stairs. Seeing this, Jin turns on the light, even though she says it's bright enough for him to see. Just like she joked yesterday, he says he wouldn't want to have to explain to the police how he found her body. Laughing, Yuna says in his case it might be worse since the police might think he was the one who did it. Yuna approaches to see the breakfast Jin made for them. Jin complains that she reeks of sweat and should take a shower first. She fires back that she'll shower after she eats and that he's just saying that to mess with her. Your jokes are awful, but at least you make a wonderful instant noodle, says Yuna. Jin washes the dishes while Yuna's in a mini food coma after eating so much. She sees a towel on the sink near Jin and asks if the towel is his and if it's the only one he has. Even after he confirms it's the only towel, she borrows it, explaining that he doesn't look like someone who'll need to wash his hair. And even if he did, no one at school would dare say anything to him. She goes on to explain that her hair is really oily, so she has to wash it daily, though she believes no one would care about how her hair looks. Hearing that, Jin turns to her and says, "Sean na." Yuna is surprised. Why would Sean care? You're really not going to stop at home before going to school? Jin asks rhetorically. He grabs a big pot and fills it with water. He puts it on the stove, saying she can use the water once it's warm. Yuna can't help but notice how meticulous Jin is. She suggests he go upstairs to take a nap while she finishes getting ready, but then says the mezzanine must be reeking of sweat. Offended, Yuna says she was sick and didn't even sweat that much. Whatever, don't talk to me. I'm gonna take a nap, says Jin, sitting in the chair and crossing his arms. A few minutes pass while Yuna washes her hair. She notices that Jin can fall asleep incredibly fast. If he used that same dedication to studying, maybe he'd be the top student in school. The scene cuts to Yuna arriving at school. She's greeted by Hisu and her minions, sarcastically asking if she's feeling better. Hisu says, "Unfortunately, she looks way better than yesterday. You know, Yuna, I'm disappointed in you. I never thought you'd stoop to such a childish tactic." "What tactic?" Yuna replies, irritated that Hisu is already bothering her first thing in the morning. But Hisu continues, saying that no matter how desperate she was for Sean's attention, faking a fainting spell was over the top. Why the hell are you assuming I want Sean's attention? Are you seriously asking me that, Yuna? Everyone knows you've got a crush on Sean. Despite Yuna's surprised expression, Hisu continues her attack. You're always looking at him and playing hard to get when he approaches. He might fall for your little game, but anyone paying attention knows what's really going on. Hearing that, Yuna starts to wonder if she really gives off that impression. She doesn't have a crush on him. On the contrary, the reason she always looks at him is because he's so different from her, and that bothers her. Jin's comment about Sean caring about how her hair looks comes to Yuna's mind. So that's why he said that, Yuna concludes. Seeing Yuna's silence, Hisu moves closer and says that if she likes him, she should just say it. After all, it's not her fault she has a mother like that, but she doesn't need to worry because she won't tell anyone about it. Startled, Yuna asks what Hisu is talking about, but before Hisu can say anything else, Sean arrives, greeting everyone. He walks up to Yuna and asks if she's feeling better today. Still irritated by everything she just heard and worried about what Hisu said, Yuna doesn't answer Sean. He asks again, this time in a more concerned tone, if everything is okay with her. Didn't I already tell you to mind your own damn business, Sean? Saying that, Yuna walks away from everyone, heading toward the school entrance. She finds Jin near the main gate. Apparently, he saw everything that just happened, which makes Yuna feel even more embarrassed. And she keeps walking like he's just a random stranger. During class, Yuna is clearly unsettled. She can't stop thinking about what Yesu said earlier. The thought of what Yesu might know about her mother bothers her. Yuna knows her mother isn't a normal person, but despite living with her whole life, she doesn't know much about her. All she knows is that her mother can't speak and is deeply disturbed, causing her to lash out at Yuna just to endure the pain. Yuna has the feeling that in some distant past, when she was little, she used to have normal conversations with her mother. Yuna remembers that some time ago she used to worry a lot about her mother, like when she'd go to work even while sick. But that worry would quickly vanish when she was scrubbing her mother's urine off the floor or getting hit by her drunk mother coming home. Her family is poor, but not everyone living in poverty has to be so messed up. Over time, Yuna assumed that there was a deep-rooted wound in her mother's heart, and that it was eating her from the inside out, making her act the way she does. But of course, assuming that doesn't make Yuna feel any better about what's happening. Recently, her mother has started leaving a bit of money in a corner of the house every now and then. Since it would just sit there for days, Yuna decided to ask if she could use the money. But her mother never responded. The first time, she bought used books with the money, and her mother didn't punish her for it. Since then, that money became Yuna's allowance. Yuna never tried to find out where the money came from. After all, it's the bare minimum a mother should do for her daughter. After all, it was her mother who brought her into this world and dumped her in this miserable environment. What kind of job does my mom even do? Yuna wonders to herself. Yuna's thoughts are interrupted when the teacher hits her on the head with a rolled-up piece of paper. He scolds her for daydreaming in the middle of class. Just because she has good grades doesn't mean she can ignore her teachers. You think you're all that just because you'll probably go to a university in Seoul and never have to look at the faces of people in this town again? Is that why you look down on everyone? The teacher says, still angry. Yuna gets irritated, remembering that this teacher is a pervert who doesn't even deserve to be called a teacher. Ever since she rejected his offer to join the math club, he started picking on her. But she'd rather die than accept his invitation. She knows very well what his intentions are. He's just a piece of garbage who harasses girls whenever he gets the chance. Irritated by Yuna's silence and look of disgust, the teacher keeps bothering her until someone calls him. Sean calls out to the teacher, saying Yuna fainted yesterday because of him. He apologizes to the teacher, saying Yuna's probably distracted because of that. But the asshole teacher responds, "Why would it be your fault she's sick? Unless she's lovesick for you? Maybe she can't sleep at night because of you?" The teacher continues, making both Sean and Yuna extremely uncomfortable. Suddenly, a basketball flies past the teacher's face, slams into the chalkboard hard, and rolls into the corner of the room. "That bastard hit her with the ball like that," says Jin, standing behind the teacher after throwing it. "People shouldn't be treated this way," he says. "Not even I do that." The teacher, revealing himself to be a complete coward, gets intimidated by what Jin just did. He recovers after a few seconds and yells that all three of them must write an apology letter to him by the end of the day. Then he storms out of the classroom, clearly pissed. Hisu asks Sean why he got himself involved in this mess. With an awkward smile, he says that in a way, it's his fault too. He looks in the direction of Yuna and Jin and accidentally asks out loud if Jin and Yuna are... Realizing what he was about to say, Sean quickly changes the subject, which leaves Hisu a bit confused and curious. Later that same day, Sean thinks about what Yuna told him earlier, to mind his own business. Maybe that's why he can't stop thinking about her. No, that's not it. He's always noticed her. She's always captivated him in some way. At the end of the day, Yuna, Sean, and Jin have to stay behind to write their apology letters to the teacher. Yuna hears someone standing up behind her. She sees Jin packing his things and wonders if he's already finished writing his letter. Seeing him grab a blank sheet of paper from the desk, she's sure he didn't write anything. But maybe unlike her, he'll get away with it. Though that math teacher is such a jerk, he might manipulate the school to give Jin trouble. Yuna never thought Jin was the kind of person who would defend someone publicly. She thinks this as Jin walks out of the room. As soon as he leaves, several students glance toward the door. And once he's far enough away, they start gossiping about Jin and Yuna. And the moment Yuna stands up, the gossip intensifies. It's natural for them to be suspicious. This is the second time Jin, who used to just sleep through every class, has defended Yuna publicly. Yuna likes the way things are. This secret friendship between her and Jin. But she knows that if Jin realizes people are paying too much attention to it, he might distance himself from her. Determined not to let that happen, Yuna calls out to Jin. "Give me your apology letter before you leave," she says, reaching her hand out toward him in the school hallway. She knows that if he doesn't give her the letter so she can write something, the math teacher will try to make his life a living hell. The other students watch the interaction between the two with curiosity, gossiping even more. Jin looks at Yuna for a moment, but without saying anything, he turns and keeps walking. Not understanding, she runs after him and tries to grab his wrist. Jin quickly pulls his arm back, making sure Yuna doesn't touch him. She looks at him, confused and scared. Turning back to her, this time with an irritated expression, he asks what she thinks she's doing. Not understanding, Yuna stares at Jin in silence, stunned. In the background, the class gossips. Hyesu comments out loud that it seems like Yuna's the only one who thinks they're friends. Pfft. Look at Jin's face. He clearly hates her. Sean, who saw the whole scene, steps out into the hallway, approaching the two of them. Jin, if you're leaving without turning in your letter because you're struggling to write it, I can teach you. And help you, says Sean with a serious expression. Jin ignores everyone, turns around, and keeps walking away, leaving Sean feeling awkward. He probably didn't believe I could actually help. I mean, I haven't even written mine yet, says Sean. Sean looks toward Yuna and, trying to break the awkward silence, asks if she's already written her letter. He doesn't even know where to begin. Even though Yuna didn't ask Sean for help, she feels responsible for him being in that situation. I never intended to challenge the authority of the teachers. The very idea that you thought that's what I meant to do, when in fact I have the utmost respect for you, breaks my heart. I deeply regret my actions. If you could find it in the depths of your heart as an adult to give me another chance, I will never forget the attitude of a diligent student in the future. You can write that, Yuna says to Sean. Although if I write that, he'll probably think I'm being sarcastic. But that's because he hates me. He might actually accept. Yuna finishes and starts to walk away. Sean calls after her, asking if he did something that made her upset. Yuna looks at Sean, thinking how much she envies that kind of honesty he can express, because he's never been hurt before. She replies that no, it's just that sometimes he'll meet people who feel uncomfortable around him, even if he hasn't done anything wrong. Sean is left speechless by Yuna's response. She knows he hasn't done anything to her, but when he looks at her, it's like all the things she tried to hide come rushing to the surface. Her ragged uniform and slippers, her hair washed in the kitchen sink, the possible smell of sweat and grime. All those things. He doesn't have to do anything to make her feel small. I love our protagonist, but I think she's being a bit too harsh with Sean. Hyesu watches everything from the classroom door, and as soon as Yuna returns, Hyesu asks what's going on between her and Jin. Annoyed by the whole situation, Yuna asks Hyesu if she has a crush on her. Since you're always getting into my business, it must be because you're in love with me? Exhausted, Yuna sits back down at her desk while Hyesu mutters in the background about what she just said. After class, Yuna heads toward the small house. Jin's probably already there. Annoyed, she thinks she's going to question him about why he acted so coldly toward her. Of course, she has her own theories about why he did it. Maybe he's just trying to keep his lone wolf image at school, or maybe he's trying to protect their secret. She walks quickly while trying to convince herself she's not just going there to see if one of her theories is right. Jin is just a secondary reason. She's going there to study because exam season is coming up. But what if he's not there? She doesn't have her flashlight, and going home at night is dangerous. Maybe she'll need to spend another night away from home, which honestly wouldn't be that bad. Being around her mother is uncomfortable. Yuna remembers what Hyesu said to her that morning. As much as she hates her, Hyesu never went out of her way to hurt me. She probably did it out of jealousy over Sean. So Yuna concludes that if she keeps her distance from Sean, maybe Hyesu will stop bothering her so much. Still, Yuna thinks she should ask her mother. As she approaches the cabin, Yuna sees the padlock is open. She smiles, sure that Jin must be home. She's about to go in but pauses for a moment. Maybe a little prank would be good payback for what happened today. She enters, trying not to make any noise to sneak up on him. When she reaches the top of the mezzanine, she sees Jin sleeping. She quickly walks toward him, calling his name to surprise him, but Jin reacts instantly, pulling Yuna and pinning her underneath him. While he's over her, he grabs her neck with his other hand. He stops as soon as he realizes it's Yuna. She starts coughing frantically while Jin apologizes. Between coughs, Yuna scolds Jin for what he just did. He apologizes, saying that since she came in without making a sound, he thought it was someone else. Worried, Jin apologizes again. With her hand on her throat, Yuna asks him to get her a glass of water. Jin runs down the stairs to get the water, while Yuna yells at him for going down the stairs again without turning the light on. He returns with the glass of water, and Yuna snatches it from him angrily at the stairs. While she drinks the water, Yuna can't help but notice how different he is outside of school. Jin asks Yuna not to play those kinds of pranks on him again because she could get hurt by accident. Yuna complains, "So you can strangle me, but I can't scare you a little?" He explains that it's different. Those are different situations. When Yuna asks him to explain why it's different, he says it's because he has better physical reflexes than she does. As soon as he says that, Yuna quickly kicks him in the stomach. But she ends up hurting herself because his abs are weirdly hard. Changing the subject, Yuna asks why he did that with the basketball earlier. Shamelessly lying, Jin says it was an accident. He has a terrible sleep habit. If your sleep habits are so bad, how come I've never noticed, considering you're asleep most of the time when I'm here? That only happens when I have nightmares. Jin replies defensively. So big tough guys like you do have nightmares? You're afraid of something. Yes, I'm afraid of something. And that's why I come to this place so often. Jin's answer makes Yuna even more curious. It's the first time he said something personal. Changing the subject, Jin asks Yuna why she came here instead of going home, especially since she didn't sleep at home last night. Do you like studying that much? Yuna knows he's right, but she doesn't have the courage to admit that the main reason she came there was to talk to him. Lying, Yuna says of course she came to study, because studying is one of the few things in her life she can control. Jin watches her with a look that's both concerned and curious. Yuna begins going down to the first floor, telling Jin he better write that apology letter to the teacher because that guy's a jerk and won't let it slide. While she descends, Jin asks if she had fun writing the letter with Sean. Why the hell would I have fun doing anything with him? Yuna snaps. And stop bringing him up every damn time you talk to me. How cute. Our Jin is clearly jealous. Still annoyed, Yuna starts organizing her things to study. Dusk falls quickly while our protagonist keeps studying. The scene cuts to Jin walking Yuna back to town. She's going home later than usual because she was behind on some English assignments. Jin stops for a moment, noticing that the streetlights are out. He asks Yuna how far her house is from where they are. She says it's fine. She can go the rest of the way alone. Or is he being extra cautious because he almost strangled her earlier? Yuna tries to joke, but Jin looks at her seriously. Yuna insists that she doesn't live far from there, and the street is empty, so it'll probably be fine. Jin points toward the street, saying there's someone standing there in the road she just said was empty. The creepy figure standing in the middle of the road gives Yuna chills. Clearly afraid, Yuna says that since he's so worried about her, he might as well walk her all the way to her front door. Jin gives a small, victorious smile, and the two begin walking toward Yuna's house. As they approach, Yuna notices something. The eerie figure they saw a moment ago looks strangely familiar. "Mom?" says Yuna as she rushes toward her mother. She approaches her mother, worried, telling her they should go home. Her mother raises her hand toward Yuna's face and gives her a hard slap. Yuna is left frozen, trying to understand why her mother did that. Meanwhile, her mother prepares to hit her again. She starts slapping Yuna over and over, causing Yuna to fall to the ground from the impact. She holds her head and starts screaming in anger. Still in shock from her mother's sudden outburst, Yuna remembers Jin is still there. Now he knows. About my biggest weakness. She thinks sadly. Yuna never wanted anyone to find out about this. Jin runs toward Yuna. She hears the sound of another slap, but this time she doesn't feel the pain. She then realizes that Jin is holding her, shielding her from her mother's blows. Yuna looks at Jin, surprised by his action. Even with Jin in front of her, Yuna's mother doesn't stop. She keeps hitting. Despite the painful slaps, Jin continues hugging and protecting Yuna in silence. Yuna feels sad and pensive. She asks Jin to move aside. Yuna quickly stands up and approaches her mother. She grabs her mother's wrist, stopping her from continuing the attack. "Talk to me. Are you doing this because I spent the night out?" Yuna says in a firm tone. "Don't tell me you've suddenly decided to pretend to be a real mother? Trying to teach me a lesson for spending a night away? Since when do you care about how to raise me? Because for as long as I can remember, I've had to raise myself." Even with Yuna's harsh words, her mother only responds with a few unintelligible sounds. Yuna continues, but now with her voice slightly shaky as if she's holding back tears. "Stop acting like you're a normal mother. Seeing you pretend like you care makes me sick." With those words, Yuna pushes her mother away from her. She turns and runs into the apartment, leaving her mother and Jin outside. Jin stands up calmly. He walks over to Yuna's mother and stops. She looks at him with rage in her eyes. He then bows politely, introducing himself formally to her. My name is Jin Kwon, and I'm one of Yuna's classmates. There's not much I can do if you decide not to believe me, but you have nothing to worry about. Yuna is an exemplary girl who only thinks about studying. After hearing Jin's words, Yuna's mother walks away, heading toward the apartment. Jin watches her with a certain sadness in his eyes. He touches one of his wounds, stinging from the slaps, and returns to his home. The next day at school, Yuna is exhausted, wishing she could disappear. Even though she's used to dealing with her mother's aggressive outbursts, she never imagined it would happen in front of someone from her school. And out of shame, Yuna has been avoiding Jin as much as possible. But final exams are approaching, and she needs to study. How is she supposed to study in the little storage shed? Yuna's mind races, remembering what happened yesterday. But mostly Jin protecting her. She feels a mix of embarrassment and affection. Unable to focus on the assignment, Yuna decides to turn it in as is. She gets up and walks past Jin, who's covered in scratches and bruises. The other students in the classroom notice it too and gossip, which bothers Yuna, since Jin looks like that because of her mother. She heads to the teacher's office but notices there's a small commotion at the entrance. When she walks in, she finds a woman with brown hair, very beautiful, who radiates a celebrity aura. A woman who clearly doesn't belong in that place, or even in that town. Noticing this, Yuna decides maybe she should deliver the apology letter another time. But just as she starts to leave, the teacher, having seen her, calls out, saying she arrived at the perfect time. The woman asks the principal, "Is that her?" And the principal confirms. Yuna approaches, and the teacher excitedly introduces her to the woman as the best student in her grade. The woman seems impressed by Yuna. She then says she heard that Yuna fainted after being hit by a ball thrown by her little Sean. Just as our protagonist suspected, the woman standing before her is Sean's mother. Yuna, embarrassed, says it was nothing serious, just an accident, and that she's already feeling better. The woman smiles at Yuna and says that even so, she would like to apologize. Taking advantage of the topic of apologies, the woman says that, to be honest, she doesn't expect anything grand from the school. What she really wants is for students to have a healthy environment. And to contribute to that, she's making a generous donation so the school can build a large gym for all the students. Besides being the school her son is attending, even if only for a short period, it's also the place where she grew up. That's why she hopes the teachers will treat the students with a bit more tolerance and leniency when it comes to their well-being. Her son never had to write an apology letter when he studied in Seoul, and she feels terrible seeing how much of a burden it's been for him here. Looking at the math teacher with a victorious smile, she says she's sure he wouldn't want his students worrying or getting distracted by such trivial things. Right, Professor? She asks calmly. Yuna watches the whole situation. She notices the math teacher is terrified of that woman. He's like a servant who just got scolded by the king. At that moment, the office door opens and Sean appears, calling for his mother. He seems bothered by something and is surprised to see Yuna there as well. Sean's mother, seeing her son, waves to him cheerfully. After a short while, the small meeting ends and Sean's mother politely hands an envelope to the teachers, saying it's a token of appreciation for their time. The teachers bid her farewell very respectfully, and the principal scolds the math teacher, telling him to be more careful with his actions. Yuna, who had been waiting, tells the teacher she brought the apology letter for him, but the exhausted teacher just tells her to leave it on the desk and go. As she exits the teacher's office, she walks past Sean and his mother talking in the hallway. "Your name is Yuna-jun, isn't it?" says Sean's mother. Sean, who had his back turned to Yuna, greets her and introduces his mother, saying she came to the school to handle some personal matters. "So you're not just here because of the gym?" Yuna says without thinking. Sean looks confused hearing about a gym, and Yuna realizes she said too much. But Sean's mother smiles at her, saying that in a way the gym will also be for her son's benefit. The woman steps closer to Yuna, complimenting her, saying that not only is she beautiful, but she also seems very intelligent. "If you're not busy this Saturday, would you like to come visit us?" Sean is embarrassed and surprised by his mother's unexpected invitation. Yuna says she's not close enough to Sean to accept that kind of invitation. Ignoring Yuna's words, Sean's mother starts asking what kind of food she likes because she's going to ask them to prepare something she enjoys. Basically forced to accept the invitation, since Sean's mom made it clear she won't take no for an answer. They both agree the meeting will be at 12:30, and Sean's mother happily says goodbye. Sean apologizes to Yuna for his mother's behavior. Yuna tells Sean that it doesn't make sense for her to go to his house for no reason. She asks him to apologize to his mom on her behalf, but she doesn't. Before Yuna can even finish the sentence, Sean insists that she was invited. That should be reason enough for her to go. He leaves quickly, saying he'll wait for her in front of the church near his house on Saturday. Yuna tries to refuse again, but he's already gone. Why is he doing this? She wonders while several students who witnessed the scene gossip about it. The gossip that Sean's mother invited Yuna for lunch spreads like wildfire, and of course Hisu is shocked by the news. She trembles with rage knowing that Yuna ignored her warnings to stay away from Sean. Jin, who was asleep in class, hears Hisu and her friends gossiping about it, and it clearly bothers him a little. Feeling one of his wounds sting, he makes a mental note not to piss Yuna off since, like his mum, she probably has one hell of a slap too. Sean returns to the classroom, which makes Jin think about what he just heard. Why would Sean's mother invite Yuna to lunch with them? But when Yuna returns to the classroom, Jin and she don't talk about anything. They just watch each other in silence. He notices that she's more restless than usual. Jin wonders what Yuna might be thinking right now. He likes it when Yuna's focused on studying. It's like she emits a special aura around her. The world around her seems to go silent, and Yuna's eyes shine occasionally as she moves her pen. The sound of the pen scratching the paper she makes is pleasant to hear. That's why Yuna is special. She makes him not feel alone, and she's the only person who can do that. A life reduced to nothing but hiding out like this is a lot more frustrating than one would imagine. Not knowing when it will end makes it that much more unbearable. And in the midst of all that, Yuna is the only one who catches his attention. She's famous at school, even though she doesn't seem to notice it. But because of her good grades, people are curious about her. But she doesn't hang out with anyone. In fact, if anyone tries to get close to her, she quickly pushes them away, as if she wants to stay isolated, which makes people gossip about her even more. Still, Jin was never curious about her before. Since they were in the same class and she sat in front of him, he ended up noticing her presence more often. No matter how many times he dozes off and wakes up, she's always there, sitting in the most proper way possible, writing in her notebook. He wonders if she really enjoys studying that much to the point she's having fun with it. Or maybe she dedicates herself so much because she feels like studying is her only ticket out. Jin's thoughts are completely consumed by Yuna. He's learned a lot about her just by observing over the days. One of the things he noticed is that her gaze frequently goes toward Sean. Jin felt a bit disappointed, thinking that, just like most girls in school, Yuna had also been charmed by Sean. But he also noticed the cold and indifferent way she treated Sean when he tried to approach her, which, curiously, made Jin smile without really knowing why. I'll tell you, dear Jin, you're smitten with Yuna, silly boy. But Jin believed that's the kind of relationship he'd have with her, an observer. Until one day he found her in the small house. And then he met a side of Yuna he'd never seen before, a side with funny and unexpected impressions. Jin smiles thinking about all of this. It's fun watching Yuna, and he likes the secret relationship they have. When they're in the small house together, he feels like he can be himself and express himself freely. That's why he doesn't want things to change, doesn't want to drift apart. But ever since he saw what happened between her and her mother, he's noticed she's been avoiding him, even though he doesn't think she should feel ashamed of it. After all, no one chooses to be born to shitty parents. Still, he knows he needs to do something to change that. Jin sighs, thinking it would have been better if he hadn't seen anything at all. And that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the story. What are you all thinking? I have to admit, I didn't expect to like this story so much, but I'm loving it. Yuna and Jin are such interesting characters, and I think since we're following them from their teenage years, they'll have plenty of space to grow. That's right. You heard it. Later chapters in this story will feature the characters as adults. Tell me in the comments what you thought and what you're excited about. And if you want more, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss any new uploads. The name of this series is The Dawn to Come, and our recap goes up to Chapter 12. Kisses and see you next time.